And a volume test. All right. All right, it's 10 o'clock. I'm just going to kick off with this one. Um, Yesterday, I did kind of a smear thing. So I was working in the red Nupastel with white, and I kind of did a smear thing. Um, and then used just a little bit of the white to add light, highlights, and your sort of lighter areas. And I kind of did a full figure on the page. So I'm going to switch it up today, and I'm going to blow this figure up. So I'm only going to focus on one spot. I think the body, center of her body is making a kind of an interesting shape. So I'm going to focus on that and draw bigger. And then I'm also going to make more of a mess with this Nupastel. So to kick off with that, I've got this small, it's like dark blue. I'm going to use more, so I don't have white this time either, just a heads up. This is more like maybe your dark blue and off-white in the orange direction. I'm going to be using these two primarily. I may still grab a white at the end if I really feel like there's something that needs it, but I'm going to try to stick to these two colors. And I'm gonna it's gonna be a little messier. It's similar to the other gray paper one where the first Conte drawing was very clean or relatively clean, wasn't a lot of smearing, and then the second one was really smeary and really kind of atmospheric. Yesterday's was pretty smeary, but just a little bit of the white sort of ticking here and there. Today's is gonna incorporate a little bit more. This is gonna mix with this, maybe in the halftones, and give me a little more substance. Maybe it'll seem kind of more painterly, I'm not sure. So all right, let's just go ahead and kick off with this. So first I need to decide, like, how am I going to put this on the page? I've already decided I'm going to blow it up. I'm going to start with I want to kind of make a design on the page for this one. I don't want to just do like figure on page. I want it to kind of be, I don't know, to make use of the whole page, like run off all four sides of the page. So I'm kind of thinking of this one as like, how is it going to look drawing wise, art piece wise at the end, rather than just like, what's the figure study of it going to be? So I think maybe I'll start in the negative shape that's between the arm sort of made by the arm where it crosses the leg and the side, sort of that center negative shape. I think that's going to be like maybe my anchor point. So I'll start with that shape and I can make adjustments to it. And that is too leaned. It's more of a straight up and down line. There we go. That's what it feels like to me. So the gesture portion of this drawing is kind of like more shape designing. There's this really nice S in the spine. I want to make sure and get that. Some cool wrinkles at the bottom of that shoulder, which comes down. All of this is subject to change, by the way, and one of the nice things about this type of approach is that it gives you the freedom, sort of the flexibility to change things if you need. Because this pastel will kind of, you can carve it into itself. You can lay down more, lay down more, lay down more. Really, it's really flexible in that regard if you're willing to put up with the mess that it will inevitably make. That leg comes out straight underneath the hook here, so maybe there. So that's roughly my design on my page. I'm gonna ask myself, do I like that design? And I think I kind of do. Like, it's activating all four parts of the page. I've got different size, like small shape, big wide shape, little shape, long shape, small shape here, small shape there. The negative shapes are kind of interesting in where they're at. So I feel like this is gonna make for a nicer design on the page overall. And as long as that's my motivation for doing something like that, there's nothing wrong with it. You could be like, oh, you're trying to skimp out and not draw the whole figure, but it won't feel like that in the end. In the end, it'll feel like, it'll feel like intentional focus for the sake of the art piece, rather than like you were dodging your responsibilities as an artist, whatever that means. All right, so I like most of this stuff. Maybe this arm needs a little help. Let's see. That angle is like that. That may be just a little bit too. I'm thinking about the muscles right here, like triceps comes up underneath this deltoideus, which wraps around trapezius. So I'm still thinking anatomy as I do this. These line up really strangely for me, like let's see if I can scoot this forward. This knee and arm, they line up in the image kind of weirdly in a way that I don't like so much. So I'm gonna just run that knee past the arm and create that little sense of overlap there. That, you'd be surprised how much space that creates when you get rid of, that's called a tangent, when you have the edge of one thing and it just lines up with the edge of another thing. It can be kind of weird. And so simply bumping that knee out anatomically across the whole leg, we're not going to notice, but that little overlap we will notice, and it'll create a little sense of space there. So if you ever have something that seems to be lining up and you see in the image and you're like, well, it lines up in the image, you don't have to do it just because the image says to do it. You can decide as an artist, you know what, I want a little sense of space there. I'm going to create a little overlap. Right? The anatomy can handle it. What happened with my... Right? There's a little flat spot at the edge of this negative shape. I want to make sure and get that. It's like where the stomach comes down, and then there's like that where ASIS area right there. And then straight down from that is where this crease starts. And creases are always nice if you just add that second little hit will feel a little more crease-like. Pieces. It's like straight up from the crease on an angle. I guess my poor internet connection is not handling it. All right, now I'm just going to hunt down this back. Easiest to there's some neck. Now I've got a strange decapitation here. I think for the sake of this image, I'm just going to leave it. Generally, this crop right at the neck can feel kind of awkward, like you just sliced the model's head off. So it might be worth scooting just a little bit just to get some sense. Doesn't even matter much what it is, just something that obscures the fact that it's like the neck ending right at the page. And ideally, maybe I could have scooted that just a little bit over to get some of the jawline in, and that's kind of what I'm doing. It's that super clean, what I would say is it's that super clean cut at the neck with no head whatsoever that makes things strange. So if you can get a little bit of the face in, maybe even a little bit of the ear, that will really help resolve things. This is a little lower. So that page feels nicer to me, just like composition wise and design wise. This just feels nicer. Like if I fully render this out, it's going to feel finished in a way maybe that the other one didn't, where the figure is just kind of surrounded by the page, like the edges of the page don't get touched. This one, it's more like, I don't know, the image fits the paper, makes use of the full page. All right, I'm going to hunt down some anatomy in the back just to make sense of some of these shapes that I'm seeing. And then I'm going to start, you'll see me really laying this stick down a little more aggressively, I guess, than we did yesterday. But first I want to get some anatomical stuff laid in. Your price is based on the weight and dimensions of your goods, so you never pay for space you don't use. We use our nationwide network of licensed and insured carriers to give you the right solution at a great rate. Let's see, we've got a shadow there. And here I'm just kind of, I'm not going to be shy. I'm not going to be shy about laying this stick down, as I said. So it's like this whole area gets it. Spine gets it. That whole area gets it. I'm kind of doing this lighter touch where it's light and this slightly heavier touch where it looks like shadow to me. So even the light side in this drawing, even the light side is getting some of this pastel, and that's going to give it some body so that when I come in with the white stick it mixes up, so it's going to feel a lot more, as I said before, it's more painterly. It feels more like a painting at that point. I'll maybe steer clear of spots where there's stronger light, like the strongest light, but most everything is going to get at least a light pass of this. I want to be careful with these strokes, these long strokes. If you do all of your strokes along the length of the, say, a leg or something, it can look really plasticky. Give a little bit wider view here. It can look a little bit plasticky, and so I'm gonna make sure some of my marks sort of break that expectation. And these are. I'm thinking about the roundness of the leg as I make these. Maybe like a long swipe and then break it a few times. This is that geometric figure is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about this leg as a cylinder, and like what would the marks on that cylinder do? They'd go this way. They'd kind of wrap like that. So my marks are gonna do the same. Silhouette that back leg. Now I could smear this right now if I wanted to, like really put that sense of atmosphere on the page. And a lot of times, especially if you're using the darker colors, like a really dark blue, it'll give you color. Like it'll make that blue really blue, like it'll really sing, because the smear just kind of like brings the color out of it. I think I'm going to hold on this one, though, in that regard. I kind of like where this one's is as a drawing, just sort of with the swipes by themselves. So I'm just going to leave them like that. But you could do like the other one, the smear, and then start bringing the light color in. I'm just going to opt not to do that. All right, I'm going to work the shadows a little bit more to kind of clarify what's going on. And I really want to think of like the forms, the three-dimensional forms here. Like this is a cylinder, more or less. It's got like a crease in it. But it's like there's a light spot of the cylinder here. Then it goes into shadow. I'm thinking about the three-dimensional stuff. The main shadow shape in that whole back to me is this one here. It's like the light is up above, it's shining down, and there's this shadow edge here. So I'm going to play that up, and I've already started here. It's a little darker. That core shadow, strengthening that is going to give me dimension almost right away. Right, and then this is a cast shadow right here. So it's like this part of this crease, this bend, it's creating a bit of a fold, but it's also, there's the shadow from the barrel of the ribs here is being cast down onto the stomach there. So I'm going to make sure, and it's pretty foggy there. It's a pretty soft edge, but I think I'm going to play it up because it's like a moment of clarity that I can have. And I'll probably make this even more drastic when I use the white stick. Or I guess in my case, it's a light stick. Yeah, so we have that sense of cast shadow right there. And this sense of kind of soft turning into the light. And if the light's coming from above, that means light's going to hit and roll off, hit and roll off. So as I look at the shapes that I'm seeing, and so if light is hitting and rolling off, shadow does the opposite. It like hits and rolls out, hits and rolls out. I hope that makes sense. So it's like hard edge here, and it's rolling out into light. Hard edge here, and it's going to roll into light. My other shapes are going to do that same thing. So I'm going to let them have a hard edge on bottom, but I'm going to soften the edge as it goes up. Same right here. And I'll reverse that with the light stick as well to further accentuate that. This arm seems to darken right where it goes behind the leg. Maybe not out here in the forearm area, but I'm going to play that just a little bit. And I'll further that with some white stick later, just to make that arm go behind the leg. This needs to get cleaned up quite a bit, so that'll definitely be something I need to do. This arm, it's fallen into shadow, and I have a choice here. I can go with the photo and just darken the whole area, like because it's tucked underneath the head, and I may do that. That may be the thing to do, but I'm gonna play some anatomical stuff real quick. Like I know this is a rounded, like this shoulder muscle, it's like an egg that just buries itself inside of another egg, essentially. So if I I add some value to it, I might be able to accentuate the form even more. All right, I'm going to take a quick stop. Well, let's see this. I'm going to take a look at things that I like and things that I don't. So like, where is this image working and where does it need help? As I look around, I quite like this area through here. I feel like it's working pretty well. Through here, it's a little clunky in the shoulder. I think I can come back with some background and really get that shaved into shape. There is an overlap here that's missing. And there. But by far, for me, the biggest problem area is up in here. Right, this top section. So I'm gonna, where do I want our focus to be up here? Well, I don't really want it to be here. So I might just make that nondescript. Right through here is where I kind of want us, I don't really want us to go much up past that shoulder. So I'm going to get some clarity in here in these folds. Like, I feel like the folds made by this arm are kind of the interesting thing going on right here. Right? Those creases are going to give a sense of the tension of that arm being wrenched back as well. All right, and then I think I'm going to need background color to shape this just a little bit better. Like, I think this, let me do a measurement. I feel like this is too wide. The neck here I've got is quite wide. If I take that measurement across the neck and find something else, it's just a little bit wider than this. It's like that. So, yeah, I'm significantly too wide here, like it should stop about there. So there's some shaping that needs to be done up here. And I can do that with a combination of the light stick and the dark stick. So this. Some of those wrinkles on the way out. So I'll clean up some of this with the white stick in the background and sort of shape that, and out here a little bit as well. The nice thing about working this size is that it gives you plenty of room. in a way that might be uncomfortable for when you're on a smaller figure and you're using the same page, but it's a full figure. You're a lot of your choices are small and they feel kind of tight. When you've got a big image like this, it's like it just feels like you could take a breath or something. It feels a little more forgiving. And it is a little more forgiving. All right, I think I want to bring back some of the line nature, like some of this stuff I kind of like. So I'm just going to find those spots that call for a little bit of line. Let that back leg just kind of chill for now. Maybe take some of the texture out of it so it's not so important. You can see the presence this is starting to get. The more I work into it, the darker and more substantial it's going to feel. That feels like it might be too light. So I'm going to give it just a dust. All of these marks are getting that same arc to them, and it the whole thing fills in with value. But when you use that arcing mark, it can't help any irregularity follows that arc, and so then it rounds things out in a little more descriptive of a way. All right, so now this looks the same light as that, but when I look at the image, I don't think that it should. I feel like this is in the light, but just barely, and this is in the shadow. So these two values are really close together. And if that's reflected light, it's far too light. So I'm gonna let it darken. This is that back leg, so I'm going to darken it where they intersect just to push it behind. And I think I'll do that for that whole leg will get the same treatment. All right, let's get some light stick involved here. All right, first places I'm going to put right here. This is a gentler stick than the white stick I was using before. So it's not going to go full blast like that white stick wanted to. And I'm just going to use it to swipe in. the light shapes. So here I'm kind of thinking about that light shapes drawing we did on black paper. And it's mixing in with some of the blue. It's mixing with the blue as well, so it's creating kind of this warm, cool effect. It's kind of nice. All right, I am going to take a line down the leg like that. So that just made the leg look very plasticky, just that straight line down to the knee. But that can be my guiding line as I come back through and kind of just back and forth it, just to ease that edge so it's not such a harsh and plastic line, because skin doesn't, unless it's wet or something, skin doesn't really do that. You get this kind of irregular, it's in a line, but it's kind of irregular because skin texture isn't perfect. I can always just run another one and break it apart, and that'll lighten things in the middle. So before, when I was breaking it apart before, it was mixing with the blue and creating quite a gummy, like muddy mess kind of. So I just put another line and started moving that one around a little bit. And all right, how much focus do I want on this knee? Not a ton. I'm going to sort of leave that alone now. Where do we want up in here? It's going to get real interesting up in here, like what is in light and what is in shadow. I'm going to have to be careful with this because this image has, it looks like maybe 2 light sources. So I'm going to, like anything that's coming from the sort of top down like this, I'm going to favor that as light source. So light's going to hit and roll off from up to down. So like here, hit and roll off, hit and roll off. Hit and roll off. I'm being gentler through here. A little more clarity up here, though it is the back, I'm getting towards this top corner, so I have to ask myself, how important is this stuff? Especially on these wrinkles, hit and roll downwards. Now I know in the image this is my lightest area, but is this really, if I look at my overall page, is this really where I want us looking up here? I kind of want us to stay here, like in this arc, maybe like through this loop. So this, I'm just gonna let it, maybe I'll have like a line, add a little bit more structure to that edge or something, but I'm just gonna let that kind of be. And I might have even done more in there already than I want to. All right, back to the white stick. feel like the light shapes in this area, they're kind of on the ribs and they kind of have this downward swipe. So I'm just gonna play that up. Just gently though, I don't need a ton. Maybe a little lightening through that erector spinae. Be careful with the shapes here. Right, I want to get that the feel of the musculature in that back. And these shapes are based like that hard shape is based on a little light shape that I see in the image. Even this little piece here, and there's even another just tiny zag underneath it, connects. Right, the more careful I am here, the more structurally convincing that back is going to end up being. Leave that. So I'm going to do this kind of zigzag stroke for full strength, wherever I want the full strength of the light to be. And you can see it kind of leaves a stronger mark. And I might, so what I'm doing here is I'll do like a zigzag to lay down a bunch of the pastel, and then I'll lay it sideways and just swipe that zigzag a little bit just to get rid of some of the oomph. Yeah, that's feeling good there now, like a wrinkle of skin. And I think I am gonna accentuate this arm just a little bit because I feel like I want to show the form of it, and I don't want it to be buried in the shadows like it is in the image. So Delilah, yeah, you can use other colors besides anything that's lighter than your gray paper will give you light. Now, how much lighter than your paper depends on how strong that light feels. White being the strongest you can go, and a lot of times white is too much. So this is like a flesh colored. It's like off-white. It's lighter than my skin, but it's kind of pinkish. It's like a really neutral orange. And that's giving me a lot of subtlety here. And I still have room if this pinkish orange isn't getting the job done, I can grab a white from my final things and just hit, like if there's a glossy spot or something I want to get, I can get a white stick to do that. But for now, I think I'm going to play a game between, I'm going to let this be as light as I go, and I'm going to do the rest with my dark stick. So instead of using white to get to the lightest light I can possibly get, I'm just going to kind of darken everything else and have this be the lightest I can possibly get. And what I find, for me at least, it's easier to control that way. It doesn't tend to be as aggressive and stark, and you can get these nuances that are tougher to get if you're using the full white stick. All right, so that means I have to do a little bit of anatomical work here because the image is giving me a little bit, but I have to be careful to think about this shoulder muscle as doing what it should be doing. Which maybe it's dark on the front edge here, but it's like somewhere in there. I'm thinking about an egg here as I do this, like it's darkening as it comes down, and then it's popping back into light again for this tricep. So and then there's going to be a second bit here maybe. Remembering that part of this goes to the back, part of it goes to the acromion, and part of it goes around to the front. I am using cues from the image, like I see a couple of light shapes in here. I'm just kind of making them a little bigger than maybe they should be. Now right now that's a harsh trip right there. It's like, cool, that arm feels really jacked. If I want to fill that in a little bit, fill in the musculature so it doesn't feel quite so aggressively muscly, I can just chase that shadow shape away a little bit. Right? That's going to give me a smoother situation. And I just gapped that shadow shape with some gentle swipes. I still have my light shape here for the tricep. I still have my deltoid here. It's just kind of rolling gently instead of really aggressively like it was before. Here's a little rule of thumb that I'm using right now as well is this white stick is never allowed to get into the shadows, but this dark stick can get over it and it'll bring it back out into the light. It's really hard to do that the other way. If you put white stick down in the shadow, to chase it back and have it work is tough. All right, I think I'm going to strengthen the core shadow through here as well. I really want to accentuate this roundness. I feel like I've got a reasonable thing going down here. This back is a question. Maybe just a little bit more fall off right here. We have the erector spinae coming up, and that's this right through here, this line, and then there's another one here. That's the erector spinae muscle group. And yeah, ask myself, does it show up decent enough that I can just leave it? Or do I need this kind of glossy sort of center to it there? That helping things. I kind of like where this is going, so I might play that up just a little bit. Back to this core shadow. This isn't something I see super strong in the image, but it is something I know should be there, sort of that right after this turns into shadow. I should get some kind of core shadow. So I'm just going to follow that light edge. And darken the core shadow there. It'll roundify things. Now this stuff seems kind of light, so I'm going to come in and darken it. And if I had a pencil, one thing I could do to darken this area without really digging in with my pastel, and this is where a pastel pencil comes in nice, of the same color that you're working with on the sticks, is if I just hunt down these little flecks, and just without going any darker, just kind of fill the flecks of gray paper in. It'll darken the area without darkening. Do the same thing, but you'll get a lot less clean look out of it. I'm going to give a little more light to this leg. But I'm not going to fight with the highlight. And again, how much do I want us to look down here? Not that much. And I know I was thinking before about maybe filling in, shaping things in the background. I don't know that I'm going to do that. Kind of liking where things are headed right now, so I'm gonna keep working with what I've got. And try and just leave these negative shapes as the gray paper. I'm going to do that thing in the shadow in these dark shapes. I'm going to just chase the paper texture away a little bit. And again, you can get at this with a smear, but then you're dealing with a smear. So it's not to say that's wrong or bad, but you have to decide if you want that smeared look. And you can smear this with the paper towel really clean. You don't have to smear everywhere, particularly right now where there's white on the page, or not white, but light on the page. I totally would not do any type of big smearing. At the very most, what I would do is some targeted smearing, like I could use my pinky to show you. Just in the shadows only, to ease some of the texture. The trick there, and the reason I'm not going to do much more than I just did, is that if you do that even at all heavily in one spot, you kind of have to do it everywhere so it doesn't look like a mistake. You know, you're kind of locking yourself into treating the shadows like that. I feel like this is kind of flat, and I know it rounds, so I'm gonna get some halftone in here, and the blue is mixing with that peachy color, and it's giving me something that's, I don't know, a little kind of a milky blue. Zigzag some of that texture on there. So I'm saving those lightest hits for this loop, right? And I kind of want this to become maybe less important. I just want, this is where I want us to kind of go in this route through the drawing. step back and look at it from a distance. Yeah, I don't think I want to do anything more to this. So I think for now that's going to end us about 20 minutes early, 25 minutes early. That's okay. Just a note, and I'll send an announcement about this as well. This is the last live stream for the beginning class, so we won't have any more after this. It's just going to be working on, so this week getting this drawing in and working on your final project, which the video, if you click in the assignment, and I think there's an announcement as well, if you click in that, you'll get the details, the parameters for that assignment. So focus on those things. I can still get together with you by Zoom, just appointment by appointment. Just send me a message and we can sort of fire up Zoom and take a look if you're in the middle of your project, you want some feedback or something like that. Just let me know ahead of time. Otherwise, the things I'm missing anything, get that turned in. And that final project. I think Research Images 3 as well, if you haven't done that. So just keep an eye on Canvas. Anything that's still outstanding, even going back, remember the due dates, the late policy has changed. So even going back in time, if there's stuff you've got zero on gestures, whatever it is, get it turned in between now and end of the semester. All right, folks, I'm going to leave this one there. Maybe tilt it up so you can see the proper angle. All right. Good luck, and we will see you when we see you.